Aesthetic Podcast. My name's Eric, and this is Randy.
Hello. Forgot to open my drink, dude. I have to start off the show opening my beverage.
You have to.
I have to, dude.
Yeah, dude, do it. So check it out. We're gonna talk about memory leaks in macOS Monterey. Steam Deck delay. Just got the email today. Davinci Resolve, because we love talking about video editing, and we also got some camera stuff, HDR Workflow stuff. We'll talk about that because it's been kind of our jam lately, right? It's kind of like what we do all day, every day, seems like.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Just basically camera stuff in general has like consumed my life, and I feel like it's for the better. Like not even from a productivity standpoint,
right.
But I feel like I'm also learning things, and that's a good thing.
No, it is. I feel like I'm always learning stuff. This is kind of off topic, but like I sent you that thing today where my work wanted me to look at this DC power supply for some expensive piece of equipment, and I was like, I can maybe fix that. It's kind of weird how we're like jack of all trades, a little bit. Yeah. I was like, yeah, I can solder on some bad caps, No,
I get that, dude. I get that. Like, it's fun to expand the mind. I guess it's probably the best way to put it. Like, it's fun to explore,
It's funny because I was not like this as a kid. Like, I was probably the worst student, in school.
Oh, I was too. But I think it's because, as we get older, we can kind of focus on things that actually interest us.
Right.
Versus things that don't.
And we have access to information now, with the internet.
We do. Yeah, I had no real interest in reading Catcher in the Rye, and then trying to interpret, what the author's thoughts were in chapter 4, the first 3 paragraphs. I don't know, man. He was writing a book. I'm not a mind reader. I know
what you mean.
Anyway, yeah.
No, it's kind of interesting, but yeah. Let's roll into our first topic, dude. So we got this memory leak. So check it out. There's been people reporting memory leak issues with macOS Monterey.
I think you're one of them who's reported an issue, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. So, I was reading on Reddit, people were saying, oh, we're having issues. And I was like, okay, well, my battery life's kind of been crap because people will say one of the symptoms is bad battery life. You notice that if you have this memory being eaten up, it tends to have this hit on your battery life. And even though I know and I expected the M1 Max 14-inch MacBook Pro to have worse battery life, I feel like it's pretty bad. Pretty bad. I seen a screenshot the other day.
Compare bad for me. Put that in context for me and put that in context for our viewers.
Yeah, so
if anyone's kind of familiar with the 13-inch M1 MacBook, some of the execs there, Air Force One, Craig Federici, and others, when they were first, given prototypes of the M1 Mac to test, which is actually the one that I still use and still have, in the old chassis with the touch bar, they thought that there was a problem with the software because it was reporting insane battery life.
Yeah.
And really, that's just how good it is, right? They literally thought it was a problem, but it was reporting properly. And as someone who now has that MacBook and uses that MacBook as their daily driver, it's really interesting to me to, kind of almost change my workflow to the point where I would take this to work and not take my charger, or I'll go use it on the couch and not take my charger.
Yeah.
That's kind of a quality of life that once you have it, I think going back to battery life in a more traditional laptop might be pretty difficult. So I'm interested to hear exactly what your performance is and what you've been experiencing, because I know you've been a long-time user of the 13 M1 MacBook, and now you kind of have the 14 M1 Max for comparison. So.
Yeah, that was one of the problems. Was I knew that my I guess my benchmark for what battery life should be has been skewed by the 13-inch because it was so good that I got so used to not even thinking about plugging it in and just using it.
Full disclosure for those of you who haven't had it, it's almost like an iPad, right? Wouldn't you say that? The 13-inch M1 Mac is almost like iPad.
It is. You use it and you don't think about how much you're using it, what you're doing on it. You're just using it, right?
Right.
And I think that's the awesome thing about it is you could be doing anything, whether it be using the GPU performance, you might be playing games on it. You might be watching videos, you might be doing video editing, and you don't really think about what you're doing and how it's impacting your battery life on the 13-inch M1 because it's just so good, no matter what you're doing. And I knew that, with the M1 Max chip and these new laptops, it was going to be like 4 times as demanding theoretically. And so I had this expectation we're going to have worse battery life, right? Like that was my prediction. And
so let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt you there, but also we have ProMotion now, right? So in theory, and we have mini LED.
Right.
So in theory, maybe the screen is also more efficient, and that could kind of combat some of that battery life usage.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It depends. Like, I feel like more efficient. Is it more efficient? I don't know. Because when I looked at my my usage graph and I saw like, okay, I used it heavily for like a 3-hour period, and my screen on time, it was all, and I used full brightness. Like, I guess it's 500 nits for SDR content.
Is it 500?
Yeah, it's calibrated. Okay. So if you're doing SDR content, it's 500 nits, which is the same as like your 13-inch MacBook Pro, I think.
So kind of just because I don't know this either. Is SDR like calibration set to 500 nits for all SDR content, or is that just what Apple decided to calibrate it to? Like if you were mastering something in SDR, let's say, would you target 500 nits peak brightness?
So it's kind of interesting because I suppose when you're talking about mastering, there's some things involved, because theoretically, just by standards alone, SDR is designed around 100 nits peak.
Oh, really?
It is.
Wow.
I've been doing this whole HDR sort of discovery. And, the thing about SDR is it's really only designed to accommodate for 100 nits when it was, kind of developed. Now, obviously, nobody consumes, unless it's like, our significant others, nobody consumes content at that low brightness, right? Like,
oh no, she loves that.
Yeah.
I mean, Kelly's phone is pretty much always off.
That's what I mean. Like, I can't even read what's on Amanda's screen half the time. She's trying to show me something, and I'm like, dude, how do you even look at that? That's the person that's consuming content at 100 nits. But like me, I'm blasting my eyes with as bright as my displays will allow. So I'm sitting here like trying to push, I above 500 nits, but that's my peak. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, right.
But yeah, so I think what Apple's done is that's kind of what they've done is historically on their laptops, it's been 500 at the best of times. Like if you had the Air, I think that it's like 400 maybe max, and then like you go up to the Pro, like the 13-inch Pro, and then now you have 500 nits. That's sort of been what they've targeted for their SDR experience. From what I can tell, I'm not sure if the iPads have the exact same sort of calibration there. But like another thing you can consider is like you can adjust your brightness as well on these things. So like grade to whatever room you're in, I guess. For me, I kind of like to have like the full brightness. So I'm not really sure what like the professional answer is for that.
Okay.
I don't think it really matters significantly. I think you need to grade it to whatever looks good for you.
Something a little bit interesting, the 12.9 inch iPad Pro, from 2021, the one with the mini LED, like the one that Kelly has,
right?
That's 600 nits SDR peak brightness and 1600 for HDR. So it's actually a little bit brighter than the MacBook, it seems.
Well, 1600 is HDR on the MacBook. Like that's
but it's 600 for SDR.
Yeah, the SDR. Let me make sure I'm not wrong on that. So I'll type.
I checked it for you.
Okay, thank goodness.
I fact checked you in real time.
Thank you for that.
I got you, man.
500 nits.
Snopes, dude.
So that's interesting.
Snopes for tech information.
No, thanks for that, because I was, that's actually fascinating. This is not really off topic, on topic, but like whenever I open an iPad app, like I used to open an iPad app within macOS, because you can do that. And I always noticed like they were brighter. I wonder if like I almost like wonder if they understand what their iPads look like, and they like give you the same experience. Like they, you know what I mean? Like I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm curious. I just noticed it was like more vibrant and just popped. It was like brighter. I was like, are they limiting like macOS native stuff to a certain point? And then like if you're on a like an iPad app, it just like it's different. I don't know. They could do that. But anyway, let me go back to the topic, which is this memory leak. My battery life is bad.
We get off on a tangent, dude.
I feel like the battery is like obviously, like I said, I've been spoiled by the 13-inch. I still think this is bad. Like worse than it should be. Yes. I think
Well, yeah,
this is
worse than it should be. Do you feel like it's like falling into like Windows laptop territory?
Kinda. Yeah.
Wow.
Like it feels like it feels worse than the 16-inch MacBook Pro Intel if you were running on dedicated graphics.
On dedicated graphics, for context, like if you have a 16-inch Intel MacBook Pro with like the 5500M or whatever, are you talking like dedicated graphics under load, like playing a game?
Well, maybe not like under load, right? Because I could kill like a 16-inch in like an hour. Like I could kill it under, like if I was playing World of Warcraft, under an hour. It's better than that, right?
Okay.
Even under significant load, but it doesn't feel much better than that. I think that
sounds not good.
It's not. It's not good, and I hope that it's because of the memory leak, because I'm not really satisfied with battery performance. Like I definitely use it on battery, right? Like I was doing some Davinci Resolve color grading on the couch, and it was fine, but I definitely like had a couple times where I caught myself with low battery, and I was like, I got to plug in. And I'm not used to that feeling, you know what I mean? Like the M1 MacBook Pro, I never had that feeling, but now that I'm on the M1 Max,
right?
It's like, but now I'm starting to think, hopefully it's that memory leak, because if they can fix that, and I definitely, like I sent you the screenshot, but you didn't really get to see it. I cut it out on accident. But the max memory use, I was using like over 40 gigs, like 45 gigs of memory, right? Just chilling.
I saw you had like what? Control Center was 16 point something,
yeah,
or 14
I thought it
something.
was like 12,
it was ridiculous.
But it was pretty high.
I mean, right? Just for comparison, guys, like when he sent me that screenshot, it was between 12 or 16 gigabytes. Let's say that.
Yeah.
Which is, so like I then just pulled up Activity Monitor on my M1 13, also running Monterey, and my Control Center was 44 megabytes.
Yeah.
So like I have my 13 in front of me. Just seeing if it changed. But yeah, it was Bizarro World, because yours was like, I basically had to scroll down the list to find it, and I had to scroll down the list now. So like my Control Center is 30 megabytes, 30.8 megabytes, and I'm at 58% battery, and that was me using it all day at work.
Wow.
So I'm not leaking, at least not yet.
Yeah,
so.
I gotta say, dude, if you're someone, I think that if you don't need the power, dude, stay on the M1. Stay on it, because it's so good for the performance per watt on it is kind of like in this god tier territory. It really is. And
I mean, like that kind of makes sense, right? Because they put the same chip in the iPad, right? So the iPad battery, which is significantly smaller, can handle it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of true. I think that, gosh, hold on. My doorbell's ringing and all this stuff. Let me make sure they're dealing with it. But yeah, the iPad definitely can handle, like, if it can handle the M1 chip, then that's kind of, fascinating. Okay. Amanda's taking care of it. I'm looking at my camera right now. Oh God, you're hearing it over Bluetooth. Sorry about that. I got pizza, dude. I got pizza coming. So yeah, I got that Papa John's anyway.
Papa John's.
Yeah, dude. I got like a 4-day weekend. House, I got this.
Man, that's awesome. I took off some time.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I took off some time around Thanksgiving, but
okay. Yeah, I got a 4-day weekend, dude. I got like tomorrow off, and then I'm taking Friday because I ain't coming in, dude. Let's be real. Yeah, and I was like, let's get a 4-day in. I kind of need one, Like I kind of feel like
all that work from home getting to
you. Dude. It's it's a lot of work from home, It's like, gosh, I got
rough times. Yeah.
Rough times. I actually got a coworker that might watch my podcast, so I can't be like, oh, I'm slacking off. I'm not slacking off, but yeah.
No, but like I mean, like being home is obviously a different vibe than going in the office.
Way
right?
different, way better actually. I was talking to some coworkers today, and they were saying like, there's some people that have legit like found jobs that they could be permanent at home. Like it's kind of like they got used to it with COVID, and then was like, I want this like full time.
Kelly's kind of in that boat now. Like but it's weird. Like this is kind of an offshoot. So I'll make it quick. But essentially, the too long didn't read is like they want to have this office reopening in January,
right?
But they required vaccinations. So now you have this small sect, this small group of, and like Kelly's vaccinated, you know, she went out, she did the right thing.
Yeah.
And now she's expected to come in the office 2 days a week starting January.
Yeah.
And that may be her permanent schedule where she's in the office for 2 days, she's home for 3 days. Not that bad.
Yeah.
However, there are a few people who chose to not get vaccinated.
Right.
And not do the right thing. And they put in for an accommodation. Which is basically a religious exemption, you know, like whether or not they're religious, that's the card they're playing. You know what I mean? That's the trap card from the Yu-Gi-Oh hand. Yeah. Well, you know what's happening with them?
What's up?
They get to work from home permanently.
No, that's ridiculous. That's bullshit.
So now Kelly feels like,
dude.
Like you can't.
You know what I'm saying?
It basically turns into this whole legal battle because like religion is difficult, right?
It is.
So the easiest thing for them to do to protect everyone is to just not bring unvaccinated people into the office,
right?
And they can't lose, you know, like 20% of their workforce. Like, it would cripple the organization. So now she's in this position where it's like, oh well, it's a good thing that I did the right thing because if I didn't do the right thing, I would get rewarded for it. Essentially, you know what I mean? Like it's a weird situation, and like I don't want to get political on the podcast or anything, but just something to take note, like how different the environment is in terms of like remote work and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable.
No, it's all good, dude. We're all about getting off topic, but
so did Apple acknowledge this battery leak yet, this memory leak yet, or
I
no?
don't remember, dude. I just remember having it and going, well, that's funny, I'm using 40 some gigs and I'm doing nothing. After
I know it's all over Reddit. Yeah. I did also want to bring up a side topic that I thought of while we were talking, if you're cool with that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to discuss Tim Cook's official response to sideloading.
Oh, I did see that. Very interesting. He was basically like, use Android.
Yeah, he's like, if you're interested in sideloading, buy an Android phone.
Yeah.
And then there were some things that kind of made me feel a little awkward when what his reasoning was, where he basically said that sideloading apps is a giant cybersecurity risk, and he would rather be in a walled garden than be on a platform that allowed you to install anything. And that's
how can you say that when you have macOS?
That kind of scared me and a lot of people in the comment thread, saying that like, is this a push to lock down macOS? Like, is this what we're going to see, where only approved Mac App Store apps are going to be allowed on Mac on future versions of macOS? Now that they, basically control the whole stack.
Well, you can tell they already sort of push for that, right? Like they don't make it easy for you to just download stuff off the internet. They go out of their way to be like, oh, you have to go to security and then accept it. Yeah. And like, that's kind of weird, right? But I have to do that quite a bit for certain things I download. And
same, yeah.
Like it's like when I first started doing it, it was like, do I really have to do this every time? But that's kind of the case. Like and I'm so used to it now that I'm like, oop, boop, boop, boop. But like, it's still like, that's Apple's sort of like, I guess what they want to do, right?
Deterrent.
Yeah.
So like a couple points I want to bring to light here. That's kind of like a more robust version of what I would consider UAC to be on Windows, like user account control.
Yeah, it's very similar.
But I also do want to say that, like, for applications like Zoom and stuff, and I've encountered this a lot over the pandemic, right? Obviously working in IT and dealing with, people who aren't used to teleconferencing and things of that nature, or video conferencing. That users who have had a Mac and weren't tech savvy, the increased security on Mac OS was a huge deterrent to them getting work done. And
interesting, really?
And the reason for that is because if you download Zoom, it needs individual access to your camera, it needs individual access to screen share, it needs individual access to your microphone, it needs individual access to all of these things. And if someone is in a hurry and they just misclick on one prompt, their Zoom's not going to work.
Wow. That's hilarious.
I mean? So it kind of falls into that category of, at what point do your features impact the end user? Like, now then their perception is, well, I could never get Zoom to work on the Mac. And that's kind of the world you live in when you deal with IT, is people will never accept responsibility for their own actions. Right. Yeah. So it's like, I see it at my work all the time. It's like, Randy, something's wrong with this PowerPoint.
Okay.
like they immediately assume that it's the software, and I think that's kind of a bad look for Apple, right? Like if like right, wrong, or indifferent, if the perception of the reality is that this hardware is preventing me from doing something, even if it's a setting they willingly clicked, their perception is it was harder for me to do it on Mac.
Wow, that's actually very interesting, and let me tell you why I think so.
Okay.
Did you see the announcement today about Apple Business Essentials?
I didn't.
So they just introduced their small business sort of enterprise sort of solution is what it is.
The only thing I did see was that macOS was now going to be a supported file server for ZFS 3.0, but I'm a bit of a storage nut, like not to the point of your buddy, but like I would say I'm like a neophyte storage nut.
Yeah. So they're basically pushing for the small business right now. They have like this centralized management. You can manage your users like Active Directory. You can have automatic backups to iCloud. You can manage Apple devices like MLM sort of thing. It's like for all your Apple products. And I think they're pushing for that small business. It's supposedly going to scale up to like small to medium size. Don't know if you can go beyond that. But
so
it's really for that, like, you got 100 devices, 150 devices sort of target.
This may be an in the weeds question, but you can add iPads to MDM in Azure and like Active Directory and stuff. You probably know that.
Yeah.
Can you add Windows devices in the Apple?
You know what? I almost guarantee you, no, dude.
That's what I'm thinking. Dude. That's what I'm thinking, dude. Yeah.
So I think this is interesting because obviously on the enterprise side, it's very Windows dominant, right? Like it's just the way it is. Unless you have creators that you're supporting that need Apple products, typically your Office nut is going to be on a Windows machine. At least that's how it is in most enterprise that I see. And
so just to give some credence to that, we run largely a Windows DC. And then when I started there, we were on-prem, and then we ran hybrid, which is basically their on-prem Azure AD, and now we converted completely to Azure AD.
Okay.
And we run all Windows machines, except we now have a Mac Mini, an iPad, and I just ordered an M1 Max Mac Pro for myself because COVID kind of inspired this like whole teleconferencing and remote work scene.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of remote trainings now, so we kind of incorporated a studio. And I'll just be honest with you, like working off of like a Microsoft Surface Book in like Resolve is just not a good experience. You know what I mean? Like it's just not a good experience.
Yeah, I'd say like, and you can make it better. You can do things to improve Resolve on Windows, but it's not as stable as it is on macOS. And the built-in like acceleration with like ProRes and stuff make it really great. Like macOS is pretty good for that sort of work.
And like, I was just gonna add, like, aside from that, like with our contracts, we can either get a Dell XPS or a Surface Book, and neither of them offer like higher than a 3060. So,
right. So yeah, I totally get it. So really, like, there's a good reason to go to Apple in this case. The small business is the Apple Business Essentials is sort of a push to get in there and like kind of have that enterprise market penetration, at least in the small business category. Yeah. I'm really curious to see if it will go anywhere. I'm sure it's going to have a lot of limitations. Like you were saying, it's probably going to be very Apple focused. But it might be really compelling. I don't know, because I know I personally am not the biggest fan of the Microsoft solution nowadays. I think that we could do better in 2021. So I think it'll be interesting to see if Apple shakes it up a little bit. And they're also having they're saying like, oh, well, we'll actually provide you a lot more support too. So like you were saying, the people that have issues with Zoom and stuff, Apple might have to actually deal with that. Yeah. And I think that that's interesting. Maybe they'll actually make some improvements to make that user experience a little bit more friendly. But you know what? At the same time, I like how Apple sort of sandbox all these different things, right? Like permissions wise, you can do it on Windows, but it's a little bit more.
I like
janky.
it, but I could see how someone who's not as tech savvy as like you, me, or our listeners may not find that to be the best.
This reminds me of when Windows added UAC, right?
Everyone hated it.
Everyone hated it, right? But it's commonplace now, and it's honestly a huge security boon. It prevents you from running everything as an administrative task, which is very good. Prevents malware from just running amok because you have to grant things privileges as they need it. And oftentimes you're not going to just give everything, you know. I know I wouldn't. Like maybe somebody's just going to hit yes to everything that pops up. But if I see something that pops up that's sketchy, then I'm going to say no. You know what I mean? Like,
dude, like we've ran into people at work who have bought gift cards. And like phishing is really hard to protect against from an IT standpoint, right? Like it comes from a legitimate user, from a legitimate email address. You just have to train your staff. And if your staff doesn't care, then they're going to get affected by it, right?
Yeah, it
like
sucks.
phishing is like phishing is very hard to protect against if you don't have the mindset to, you know, do your due diligence. You
Right,
know, like,
right.
Like it's really easy. I don't want to say it's easy, but it's not too, what's the word I'm looking for? It's expected to protect against malware, right? Like
Right.
it's like to put the controls in place on your endpoints and to put and to put the controls in place on your network to protect against, you know, intrusions, malicious code, things of that nature. But if someone literally sits at a computer and uses a legitimate email address and, you know, goes out to social media and uses social engineering to find out, you know, who runs your company, who's your CFO,
Right.
who's your executive vice president, it's really easy to get that information and then send an email to someone who doesn't know any better and do their due diligence and get them to buy gift
that's
cards
if
or
they're
things of that
smart.
nature.
You know what I mean? Most of the time, this stuff is obvious. Like 90% of the time. Sometimes you get some that are really good. You know what I mean? You're like, wow, I'm impressed. I'm impressed, dude.
I've had multiple trainings at my work where I'm like, hey, you know, like check the sender's email address, look for proper spelling. You know, like we will never ask you for gift cards, and we still have had 3 people who went out and bought gift cards, and they came from that. They like
And
there's
that's
nothing I can do
terrible
about it.
that's like
right?
the dumbest.
Yeah.
The dumbest thing. Like, who's the IRS? Like, are you claiming to be the IRS? Like, what?
Yeah. I mean, the one that kind of got us was someone posing to be the CEO of the organization saying, I'm in meetings all day, but I need to get some thank you gifts for some clients. Can you run over to CVS and grab $50 iTunes gift cards? And they would go do it.
Oh my God, ridiculous. That's so dumb.
Yeah. And
Sorry.
and,
Sorry.
and like, no. And like, again, like I append every email with an external header. I have the new feature in Exchange that uses AI to determine what addresses you get email from frequently. So like it'll actually pop up in a box that says you don't usually get email from this person, right?
Oh,
so
interesting.
if someone claims to be like you, for example, to me, right? Like if someone claims to be Eric, claiming to be you, and then I got a pop-up that says, hey, you usually don't get email from this person, but I know we talk every day, you would think like, oh, something's not right here. You know what I mean? But still, people are just like, oh, okay, checks out, works good.
We have a thing at work that for us, it's like, this email is from outside your organization. Like that will come up.
I have that too. Yeah.
And that should be pretty obvious, right? Like if I have an internal email, like, okay, I know what it is. If I'm getting something that looks internal, but it's from outside my organization, that's a little sketch, dude.
Yeah, but it's just people not caring, and that's kind of like, so like, you know, coming full circle, I see Apple's pain because you want to protect people from that as much as possible,
right?
But you also don't want to limit the end user's ability to do what they need to do. So, you know, coming back to Apple in full circle, you know, like that's kind of the beauty of Face ID, right? Like it's totally seamless to the end user, but it provides appropriate authentication and protection for the end user without the end user even realizing that they're authenticating with something they have. You know what I mean? So,
I mean, I think Apple does a great job for the most part at that. Like, it's pretty seamless what they do regarding security. And I think that the reason that the iPad is such a great experience is because it's closed, right? Like the moment you make it open, you have to make those inconvenient things to keep you safe. Right?
Oh, you're totally right.
So
totally
like the fact that the iPad is closed, I don't have to ask, like the only thing I have to do is like I might, you know, say like location permissions or something. Like that might be the one pop-up or something. But like, you know, pretty much everything's going to be able to use your mic and camera as needed. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is. And then, you know, it's not like it's popping up. Like you get everything from the App Store. So it's like, you know, it's pretty seamless, right? That's if you don't want to deal with the security stuff being annoying, then go to those closed ecosystems. But I think that I don't think you design these open platforms around dumb people, because you can't use these if you don't know what you're doing. You can't.
I don't disagree.
Not in a safe way. Like, not really. I think they've done a great job with modern operating system design to make it a pretty good balance between safe and usable, right? And still be open. So, especially on macOS, where you have to go in there and say, like, accept this in my security or whatever, if it's like a third-party app or whatever, like you downloaded it. Oh, you downloaded this app. Are you sure you want to run it? Yes. You know what I mean? Right. So, I prefer that way more. Even if the end users are dumb, I think they ought to get educated. That's my opinion on it. Even if it is at the expense of some IT time, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. But anyway, I want to move on, dude. Memory leaks thing. Hopefully they fix it. Steam Deck delay, dude. I want to talk about that. So I got an email. I sent it to you. Or I sent the little screenshot. I was like,
I got the same email, dude.
2 months pushed back, dude. Worst case scenario.
I don't think anyone
is surprised.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised either. So, you know, they basically said it's going to be delayed 2 months.
There it is, yeah.
And
the launch of the Steam Deck will be delayed by 2 months.
We're not shocked. You know, so what it puts it into February 2022. And it's disheartening, but it's expected, right? Valve, I mean, they're not industry leaders in hardware, so you know, I'm not surprised that they kind of, you know, they made an estimate that was a little bit ambitious, and the silicon shortage kind of slammed them a little bit. And I get that. And they list that out. Like they you know, they basically say in their email that, you know, they did estimates, but because of global supply chain issues, they're not able to reach their goals. And, you know, they're not able to get to the manufacturing facilities in time is what they say. So, yeah, it kind of sucks because I wanted to play with the Steam Deck real bad, dude. You know, I'm kind of wanting to play with it.
I want to get rid of my desktop, dude.
Yeah. I honestly, I kind of wish I could, but I do need the desktop. I think unquestionably, I need the desktop.
I don't.
I still need it. I still need it for gaming. I still need it for those brute force like hardware tasks that even the M1 can't really beat. Like as much as you optimize the M1, it still doesn't have raw horsepower, and sometimes you do need it. I can't render as fast on it with Davinci Resolve. Not that that matters, right? Because it renders very quickly.
What's the difference? Since I think we'll be transitioning into Resolve pretty quickly.
Yeah, actually right now.
What's the difference in like render time? Because you probably have done a bunch of tests on that, I would assume.
I need to run more, but all I know is like, because I don't have the numbers in front of me, I was going to actually take some notes and actually, you know, be able to spit out some numbers, because I wanted to do multiple projects multiple different times and kind of get like an average of like,
sure,
what's the percentage gain you get by being on desktop versus like the laptop. And like it depends on also what codec you're using, not really the container as much as like if you're using H.264, H.265, maybe you're exporting in like a ProRes or something. because some people deliver in ProRes, like if you're giving to a media organization, they want to use that footage. So like there would be a reason for that. So there's a lot of scenarios in which I'd test, but the GPU encoding was just that much better. It was like significantly faster from my tests. But then again, how often does it matter, right? Like if you're MKBHD and you're rendering maybe in like how long are his videos? Like maybe 15 minutes? And he said he can export.
I was going to say about, but I was going to say between like 10 and 15.
10 and 15 minutes. And like, he can export in like, I don't know, like he said like 4 minutes or something. I don't know. Like if for me, it would be a little bit longer because I have like, if I master this, if I work on this podcast, it's going to be like an hour and a half maybe. And then I have to edit it. So like for an hour and a half, even if you're doing like, 30 seconds a frame, you're still looking at, almost an hour of rendering. Right.
Sure,
but even then, like it was pretty much almost like, it was almost like I was getting pretty much 1-to-1, like 1 minute for, like it basically would take the entire time of the length of the podcast to render. Which would be like an hour and a half long sometimes.
So like, and your timeline is it 30 or 24?
30. So I'm running a 30 frames per second timeline right now, 4K currently, and so it takes a lot longer than it did on the 1080p timeline.
Right.
But so it does take some time to render, and it would take even longer on the Mac. So if you're rendering a podcast, it's taking that long, and I render at a pretty high bit rate. So like I basically cap it out. I try and aim for like 80,000 kilobytes per second, or I guess 80 megabits a second, if you want to put it like that. And that's pretty taxing. So it takes a long time, and that sucks. But like, it's the render times don't really matter. You kind of just fire it off and like walk away. But sometimes it's like, I'd like to publish this. I'd like to upload it to the YouTubes, get it up. And if you can do it faster, that's good, right? Oftentimes, like after we're done here, I'll probably want to, edit the thing, get it edited like pretty quick, right? And then like I want to upload it. And if it takes a long time, that's where the desktop still comes into play. Not to say the MacBook isn't fast, because it is. Any other laptop, I would say like you're not really going to outperform it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you're comparing against other laptops, like hands down. So
I think where I'm at, dude, is I prefer having a portable device where like all of my workflow is. Yeah. So like coming home, docking my MacBook, and then taking it with me has advantages more so than like a faster render time.
Yeah. You know what? And even regardless, I'm still going to use the MacBook for all my editing. You know what I mean? Like Resolve, like I don't care about that render time performance. The timeline performance is that good on the M1. That's really what I care about, right? So how good is timeline performance?
Right.
And I like how it runs on the M1 Max, so I'm going to use it. So, yeah.
So you wanted to talk HDR workflow?
Yeah, right? I did, dude. I sent you a screenshot. It was basically like how many times I was testing. I had like 10 seconds of footage that was in HDR. I did a grade on it. I liked how it looked in the preview window, and I kept trying it over and over. And I kind of want to give some context to this to the listeners and viewers. So forgive me if I rant a little bit. I'll try and summarize so I'm not as wordy as I normally am. But correct me, what do you think, dude? Do you think HDR is like one of those things that you really enjoy about displays nowadays?
It depends.
Does it matter to you, dude?
So I would say that in a YouTube video, no. I would say that in a movie and a game, yes.
Okay. So I'm of the opinion that it would be great if everything could be HDR, right?
Okay.
I just love it. Specifically, and we didn't mention this, but even in games, right? Games, I absolutely love HDR. Right. I think that you won't argue with me there. I think that you like HDR games.
No. Like for example, my television, my Samsung Q90R is kind of on the cusp where it's USB or wow USB HDMI 2.0B, but it has 2.1 features, but it's not true 2.1.
Right.
So sometimes if I play a game on Xbox that's VRR, 4K, 120 hertz HDR, sometimes my TV won't realize the input until I go to my home screen and then go back. But I can tell right away when HDR didn't load properly, like right away.
Yeah, but like if it's hitting though, it looks good, right?
Yeah, it looks insane. It looks
HDR,
insane. Like,
if your game works well with it, some games don't do HDR the best, right? I'll admit that, but when they do, they hit, right? Like the when the brightness is bright and it's just like the specular highlights are just very crisp and colors are just that good. You're like, yes, this is fantastic. And the new MacBooks, the displays on them are honestly like they're so good. I really like the new Pro Display XDRs in these MacBooks. They're just so good. And I know this because I've tested footage. Like I've done HDR YouTube videos. I haven't looked at Dolby Vision stuff yet because I'd have to like...
Can I take a little side road
there
real quick? What's your opinion on the mini LED blooming?
So I'm going to be honest. I haven't seen it, especially in SDR content. If you're in SDR content, I don't think the screen gets bright enough to where blooming is visible. I think that if you're watching certain HDR content, it's going to be unavoidable. I'm pretty sure. I haven't tested it. I was going to do the Starfield test, which is where OLEDs just kill it, right?
Yeah.
And I was going to see if I get blooming around like little stars, you know? That's what I want to... I think that's like the benchmark. How well does it do to my eye on that? And I haven't got the footage to test. I need to find out like where that is. Maybe I could find it on YouTube or something, like a good like OLED screen test. That would be probably how
I would probably test. I could show you the one off podcast that I tested Kelly's 12.9-inch iPad on.
Okay.
And like the scene looks like breathtaking.
They have the one,
but
okay,
but there are definitely scenes where you can see blooming. At least I can see blooming. I mean, like I'm super sensitive to it, I guess.
Well, how many dimming zones are on that display? Is it the same as these new ones? Probably, right? Pretty similar. Like the new
has the 12.9 has, it says more than 25,000 or 2,500 dimming zones. On the iPad Pro.
It's quite a bit, and I don't know how much is in the new. I'm pretty bad about remembering those like weird fact numbers. But I know there's a lot, right? I know there's a lot, especially compared to displays that I'm used to.
It just says here that the 12.9-inch iPad Pro includes 2,500 dimming zones, and while it's not entirely clear how many dimming zones are in the 14 and 16-inch MacBook.
Okay, so we don't know yet, or they might have put it out there. I don't know, but I just know the display looks great in normal content. Like there's probably going to be a couple times like you'll see blooming, but in all the content I've consumed thus far that has been HDR, it's looked so good. It's just so bright. It's, you know, a DCI P3 color gamut, like capable display. It just like the colors pop. Everything looks so good. And so I want to be able to master an HDR. It's been kind of a goal of mine because I just love the experience of watching HDR content on HDR capable displays. Not everybody has them yet, which I think is a big shame because they're really, to me, it's just like the next level of fidelity that I really love.
I think people are allergic to spending money on things they don't see value in.
Right. I think that, you know, and this is another thing. You know how like people go to Best Buy and they're like looking at the displays and they always have like the demo stuff running?
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if on the HDR TVs, do they have like an HDR demo running, or is that like an SDR?
They do.
Like...
They do. So like,
okay.
I know this specifically for three reasons. Because one, I used to work at Best Buy, and two, I have a bunch of friends who still work at Best Buy. So essentially, how it works is like Best Buy sells like floor space, right? Like that's part of Best Buy's revenue plan is they basically do advertising. So like the big Sony display you see, the big Samsung display you see, the big LG display you see, those manufacturers bought that space.
Okay,
You know,
that makes sense.
and then Best Buy has to set up that space to their specifications. So essentially, what they'll do is like I'll just use LG for example because like I'm kind of partial to LG display.
Same. Yep.
LG will ship this box that almost looks like a server rack that has like let's say 9 HDMI outs on it, and every TV will plug into this server box, and it will just run a demo that's been 100% calibrated and tuned to show those displays in their best possible scenarios.
Okay, that's pretty smart.
In the case of LG Display, that's a 4K black heavy contrasty,
Yeah,
just
because you can go on
real
YouTube and look up that
OLED
HDR like
heavy demo.
Yeah.
Whereas if you walk over to the Samsung's booth, they're going to show something a little bit different, right? Like they're not going to want to show you that QLED is blooming. So they're going to focus on 8K content because they have like the Q900s out that are 8K televisions. So they're going to focus on like micro detail, you know. But to answer your question, every demo is 130% in HDR because it just shows the TV in the best light.
It does. And I think I'm addicted to that kind of content, you know. You ever watch a movie that like you don't really care to watch, but you know it's going to have that sick visual, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So like a good example for me, I'm a weirdo because I'm into cameras and video and photos and stuff. So like I really like, if I'm not really, even if I am or aren't interested in the movie, like I'll always look up the cinematographer. Like Emmanuel Uzbeki is like insane, like the dude from The Revenant.
Oh,
like,
yeah, that was a great movie.
I remember that he would only film certain scenes of The Revenant based off of how the sun was because he wanted to use natural light as much as possible. But that's a good film, for example. But anyway, I guess the point that, to your point, I wasn't really excited for Alita Battle Angel at all. But having a Samsung television in like my theater space, they're allergic to Dolby Vision, so they only have HDR 10 plus, and that is like one of 3 movies that's done in HDR 10 plus, and I watched it just for that reason. So.
Yeah, you know what was that's pretty funny actually. I was looking up HDR color grading for Davinci Resolve, and you know I can do different things. I can do HDR 10, HDR 10 plus, and Dolby Vision exports, right? And it's very interesting how that works. And there's like because there's like different HDR standards, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was doing all the difference. What's the difference between all the standards? Which one is kind of ideal if I upload to YouTube? And I think my conclusion is you want to do like an HLG based HDR because it looks the best when viewed on SDR displays, which I think is most people. I think that you're going to get people on mobile that have like the latest iPhones that might be able to experience that HDR. And then you're going to get people like maybe watching it like with like an Apple TV or something that can experience that HDR. But like for the most part, your YouTube audience is probably an SDR based viewer. You know what I mean? So you kind of want to master your HDR with an SDR conversion in mind, which is such a pain. It's really a pain.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
And this is something I don't understand, so maybe you can explain it to me and the viewers. What's the difference between an HDR standard, like HDR 10, HDR 10 plus, Dolby Vision, and HLG?
So I can't tell you much other than...
I know it's like hybrid log gamut, but that's basically the extent of my knowledge in that.
Right. So what I found is okay. So if say you're watching an HDR video and you're watching it on an SDR display, or you're watching it with like a viewer that's presenting it in SDR. You know what I mean? Like say you open it in VLC, it's an HDR video, you open it in VLC. That application has to tone map that image. And a lot of times if it's going to look like you're looking at log footage. right? Like there's like ST2084, which is like if you export in HDR Dolby Vision, I'm pretty sure it's like an ST2084 based.
Oh, wait, 2084? Is that different than Rec 2020?
It's like it's a different standard for, I think it's like a different way to present your color space. It has a different gamma curve. There's a lot more involved with it, right? So it's about like I honestly, I don't know enough about it to be able to explain it in a easily consumed way. I only kind of know what it means to me, right? ST2084 based exports, HDR based exports like Dolby Vision don't look the best on SDR displays without tone mapping that can translate it to SDR properly. And depending on what you're viewing that Dolby Vision content on, it's either going to do a good or a bad job. Like say, for example, if you're viewing it on an Apple TV, it's probably taking that Dolby Vision HDR video, and then it's going to be able to do a relatively good SDR conversion for that. But they might not even do that. They might just have like an SDR master that they'll show you instead.
Sure.
You know, like say you go on the Apple TV, Apple like movies or whatever, and you download a movie. And if you're on an SDR display, maybe they'll just show you the SDR master for it in 4K instead of the Dolby Vision one. Like that, I don't even know if they go through that conversion or not. It's a big question. The only reason I bring up HLG is I noticed that if I export, and I also did the research on it, it's sort of designed to where if you're viewing it on an SDR display, the only thing you're really losing is that specular detail. Most of the way the gamma curve works is most of that data is the HDR data per se is really only giving you more specular detail, like in the very brights. And then everything else sort of matches an SDR profile. So that way, when you're viewing it SDR, it looks pretty good. But like ST2084 and other HDR standards don't do that. They have a kind of a more linear gamma curve where the data is more like evenly spread out, and it looks like log footage on an SDR display just because they don't do that tone mapping to make it look good. And that's what I notice is what's happening for me. So I did like many different exports, HDR exports, and some of them looked good. Some of them looked really washed out, and it was very difficult to find like this sweet balance. Because it's like it really depends on what you're publishing for, right? It's kind of interesting because they have a Netflix preset for if you're exporting to Netflix, and they have like all this stuff like
Resolve has a Netflix preset?
They do. So it's
now, is that just Netflix, or is it like a streaming service preset?
It's for like if you're mastering a Netflix original, it's gonna deliver your project in a way where Netflix will accept it when you give it to them for streaming service, right? Which is pretty interesting. They have like certain requirements and everything, and Resolve kind of like handles it for you, that's
pretty nice.
It's really neat. So like if you're making Netflix originals, they have certain requirements for HDR and everything like that, which is fascinating. I love that.
That's pretty cool.
That Resolve has that built in. It kind of makes you feel like you're using like an actual professional tool because like
you are though.
You
right?
are.
Like
you know what I mean?
Kind of movies made in Resolve, I think. Yeah,
which is awesome. That's what's fascinating. I just kind of want to see what the bleeding edge is with HDR, I mean, but I'm kind of
me personally.
Yeah,
I think I still need to learn how to grade properly in SDR before I tackle the different workflow.
I'm starting to feel like it's funny because I agree. I think that I need to focus on SDR. Like without question, most things are SDR, and SDR can look pretty damn good. Let's be real, right? Like 90% of YouTube videos you watch, SDR, they look great. So you can make a good looking SDR image. And unless it's a film, do you really need HDR? Probably not, dude. Like, is this podcast going to really benefit? Like, look at this image right now, dude. Am I going to have like 1,000 nit bokeh balls in the background? No. You know what I mean?
What if you did, dude?
What if I did?
What if you did?
What if I did, dude? But like, my point is, like, this podcast wouldn't really benefit from an HDR timeline. And most content probably won't. So it's probably best that I don't focus on HDR. I think that I just want to do it to spite the other YouTube creators that aren't doing it, that talk about wanting to do it.
I don't know if it's like for a spite or if it just turns down to like that, you know, worth versus effort type deal where it's like, they probably have enough follower base where it's like, okay, I have like let's take MKBHD for example. Like he probably has let's say 2.5 million views per video. That's probably being generous. And he probably, you know, looks at YouTube analytics and he's like, all right, less than 1% would actually receive this in an HDR capable format. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like,
yeah, I would love to see those analytics, but you're probably right. Like it's not worth it. They probably should focus on other things. And that's probably the case. I think it's not really out of spite. I think it's more of a aspirational thing. Like I kind of see what these YouTubers are doing. They talk about wanting to move to HDR eventually, and being interested in an HDR workflow. And I kind of want to challenge myself. Like, can I do it? You know?
Yeah.
And I can. It's just okay. Let me tell you the challenge I'm finding is no matter how I export an HDR video, QuickTime will not be as bright as the preview window was in Resolve.
Really?
Yeah, no matter what I do, it just seems like it doesn't match up with what I saw in the preview window. And I've tried a lot of stuff to try and make that fixed. So that's why I kind of want you to get in your hands on one of these things so I can share my project with you, and then maybe you can help me figure it out. Because if I can figure that out, then I can actually color grade in HDR and get like a really crispy showcase of HDR. You know how like people, you know, if you're testing an HDR display, you go to YouTube and you watch that freaking lion video or whatever.
Yeah.
You watch the snake, it looks really nice. You watch the LG. I want to make my own HDR test video that looks crispy. You know what I mean? That I can, whenever I get a new display, I can throw up my video and be like, okay.
And what's how it looks, dude?
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I know the baseline, dude. Yeah. No, I get it.
I want to make my own HDR baseline, you know, and I just think that would be fun. So, yeah, we'll get into that when the time comes. But yeah, Davinci Resolve has been a lot of fun lately, dude.
That's great, man. I mean, I'm enjoying it too, obviously. I mean, you're probably like as much as I'm into video, I would say that I'm still probably 70% photo, 30 video, and you're probably the opposite of me.
Yeah, that's probably the case. You know, I feel like I'm still learning a lot about both. And, you know, I've been focusing on video lately because I think that's what I'm fascinating in doing for YouTube and for the podcast. I've been doing it, but, you know, we have our little other channels and stuff I wanted to produce content for. So I've been kind of focusing on it. But, dude, do you see what some of these colorists can do? Like,
yeah,
I'm
like that video
impressed.
you linked me the other day. Like, it's just the learning process I'm excited for a lot. Just because I'm interested in that. You know what I mean? Like, I find that fun.
It's very similar to photo editing, but I'm finding that you can do as much with video as you can with photo in a lot of ways. Like with the look of an image, you can make it look any way you want.
Yeah.
You can highlight the face. You can change skin tone specifically. You can change the color of a dude's shirt. You can, you know, you can do so much, and it's not hard. You just got to know the magic, the workflow, and I'm still learning it, but I'm excited to play around and make that crispy shot, you know? I would almost be a colorist, like, as my job. You know?
I would love to do that. Yeah, like, it's funny because I was thinking about that on my drive home.
Yeah.
That I would love to be a colorist, but I don't think it pays.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure like if you're in like the top maybe 2%, it pays.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I don't know, man, like I see like all of these like small like media creation firms around here,
right?
And they have like videographers and stuff, and they make like $40K, and it's like, oh,
okay.
okay.
Yeah, and that's probably pretty good for
yeah.
some people, but like when
Yeah.
you're working in like high-end IT and stuff, like it's kind of a downgrade, right? Like I'm not quitting my job so I can be a colorist, right?
I would.
I would you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if they paid me the same, absolutely.
If they paid you the same, but like if they paid you like the less, like the average, like no.
Here's the thing. So like if I could start a photography business and I made 30% less than I do now, I would do it.
Yeah, I think that it would be more fun. I think it'd be more enjoyable, so it'd probably be worth it. And like another thing is you would just write off all that camera gear that you'd buy anyway with your regular income on your taxes, and your business would be buying it. You know, it's just like
plus like the dream is getting paid to do something you enjoy, and also being able to set your own hours. Like if I felt like working 10 hours today and 6 hours tomorrow, I'd be able to do that. You know, I'd have that freedom. So
I'm gonna be honest. I feel like if I'm a business owner, suddenly I'm working like way more hours than. Like
but it's usually on like something
day,
but you see the initial return of that, right? Like that's the difference, right? Like if you work like sometimes I put in like 14-hour work days at my work, you know, I do that, and it's like, what did I get from it? Oh, I get to go to bed and wake up at the same time and do a full day and get nothing for it, you know. But like you know, so
no, I feel that, dude. Like yeah, if you're working those rough hours for sure, like that makes total sense. I feel like I got a pretty much perfect job right now, so anything I do would be a downgrade for a significant amount of time. Yeah, and that's why it's got to start. Like if I do a photography thing, if I do if I start my own studio or whatever, then it's gonna be a side hustle for a long time.
Yeah,
you know? But I'm still interested in doing it because I love to manipulate. I was telling people I was telling Amanda that photography and videography and film, it's all like the perfect amount of stimulating on a technical level to make it like really fun. Because like there's so many different camera settings, so much stuff you have to consider, more than just the artistic side of it. Because that's what like someone like Amanda that doesn't really understand the technicals, all they do is like, I want to make this look cool, and they want to play with the sliders, right? But
so like
there's
that's
so
kind of
much
where Kelly
involved.
is. That's kind of where Kelly is, but like I think I told you like before you were even really into photography and videography, like when I first got into it, like you know, back in 2016 or whatever,
right?
I wanted a creative outlet, and like I have a very technical brain, right? Like I'm very analytical, I'm very technical, and I can't draw worth a shit. I can't paint for anything, you know, and like I kind of got drawn to cameras and photography because just like even at the entry level surface with like just covering like basic stuff like the exposure triangle, there's a lot of like analytical and like math that goes into taking a really proper photo.
Even today I'm not a master at it. I'm still like getting better all the time, and I'm like learning things about like how I ought to be shooting and how to better use the exposure triangle, and like I love that. I love how technical it is. And it feels good from both perspectives. It's creative and it's technical. And I think you'll like Blender because it's kind of like that too.
I do like Blender, or like I do want to learn Blender, but right now it's like I prioritized video, right? So it's like I don't want to jump off the deep end into two things at the same time.
No, it's hard for me, honestly. You know, it's like I don't know if it's my ADHD brain or what, but it's like one thing and all the way that one thing, dude. You know what I mean? So like that's me right now with like Resolve and video and getting into it. It's like 100% like learning about it, watching videos, sucking in all that knowledge, because there's a lot to know. It's crazy. And you know, it's funny because like the more you know, the more you look and see that like the difference in technique from person to person. Like you watch all these different Resolve I guess tutorials, and you see that people do things differently. And
they do.
Sometimes worse than others, and it's fascinating.
Well, I mean, that's kind of testament to the software for me, right? Like you see it in Capture One, you see it in Lightroom, you see it in Photoshop, that like these, you know, call them professional grade softwares are so powerful
Yeah.
that you can really create a workflow that works for you and achieve similar results, which I
Right.
think is pretty cool, right? Like
It is.
like it's nice to have multiple paths that get you from point A to point B,
Right.
and then you can kind of develop a workflow that really fits your style.
Yeah, I think it's just Resolve. Like, when you had me download Final Cut, and so let me tell you, dude, I don't think Final Cut is as hype as it should be on the Mac. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't, dude, because it still has to do what you have to do in Resolve. It still has to make optimized media. Like, if you're working if you're working with footage that's already in ProRes, either platform is fine, except if you're in ProRes RAW. If you're in ProRes RAW, you basically have to use Final Cut. Or you convert your footage to ProRes 444, and then you can use it in Resolve. But if you're using, that's the only time that I feel like Final Cut has an advantage. I've like Resolve, okay, and then in the weird import audio thing that you saw me do, which I'm not going to get into. So there's definitely some charm to be had with Final Cut, but I feel like Resolve is just like the color grading tools, the tools that you get are really good. I wouldn't want to give those up, man. I wouldn't want to give them up to go to Final Cut.
No, I agree with you. I think for me in Resolve, the color grading tab alone is worth it.
It's so powerful, the tools that they give you for qualifying and everything. It's just really good. Tracking, stuff like that. Like, I know that they've added that stuff to Final Cut, but I just feel like it's different. It's not. I feel like the package is better in Resolve.
I agree for that.
So what have you been doing in Resolve? Like, you've been doing a lot of stuff for work, which is awesome.
I'm doing a ton of stuff for work in Resolve. Yeah.
That's kind of funny because your job is like, it's all over the place, dude. It's like now you're a video editor.
It's mostly IT and cybersecurity, but like it kind of falls into that wheelhouse of like, if I could do something I enjoy and want to learn and eat up work time for it, I'm going to take that advantage. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't blame you, dude. Like, I would love it if they let me do it. Although they'd probably give it to, we have like a bunch of artsy fartsy guys across the way that are like, all they do is like Photoshop all day, and like they do a little bit of 3D modeling and Unity stuff. So they probably have those artsy guys do the video editing.
Probably.
Like, we don't really have a need for that with what I'm doing. But
so
that'd be awesome. That's cool as hell.
Yeah, it'd be really cool. Yeah.
You get to play with the gear.
Dude. We could do stuff together.
Yeah. Okay. I'm pretty much stuck down here, dude. I don't think I can move.
Yeah. I think what I'm mostly working on is I kind of want to get to a point where I can do photography on the side. Like, just start off with some supplemental income to basically fuel my lens purchasing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
at the bare minimum, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the
kind of where I'm
minimum.
at. Yeah.
Like, let me get enough money to pay off this camera gear. That's all I need, dude. I don't need to be doing it like... Yeah. I don't need to be rolling in the dough. I just want to be able to pay off this camera gear.
I just want to buy more lenses. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want primes. Well, I've already told Kelly that like if I start doing this, I think the first lens that I'm going to save up for just from side hustle money is like something ignorant, like the 400-2.8.
Oh my god, that'd be so cool, dude. That'd be awesome. That's a great focal length. Really
400 millimeter 2.8, dude. That's like $12,000.
Oh my god!
It's like one of the big white boys. But I promise you guys that if I meet my goal, I will do a podcast where my camera view is 400 2.8. So.
Dude, where the fuck? You have to do it outside, dude.
Yeah, dude.
Where I'm gonna be looking at an eyebrow, like, and that's it. Like your eye, like that's like your whole side to the fucking screen. Yeah, dude. I really love my 85 so much, dude. Like, this guy is just so like. I love, dude, being able to get a 1.4 like and just blow out backgrounds. And I took a couple portraits of Amanda a couple weekends back, and I was just like, this is fun. I want to do it for professionally.
Were those the ones that we kind of both edited?
Yeah, we were playing around, and I learned a lot from that scenario. For the listeners out there, I took a bunch of photos, gave some to Randy, and I said, give me the Randy edit. And the Randy edit came back good looking. Oh, Amanda had a criticism though.
Go on.
Yeah. So there was one shot you took. it was the one where
I took or I edited.
or sorry, you edited. That was she was standing in the middle of like the wooded area, and you did the Randy edit on it, and I think I think I agree with her though. You over brighten the face a little bit.
Which one was this?
Where it was like,
do you remember which one this was?
I know what it was from memory, but I don't have it. Oh,
what lens was it?
Do I have it here? No,
was it the 85 one or the 12 to 24?
It was the 85, I think.
Oh yeah, that shot was kind of hard to do because I think it was left on evaluative metering and the backlight was brighter than the subject.
Oh, you know what?
So I did brighten the face on that one, but the 12 to 24 GM, that shot was toasty, dude. That was a good shot, dude.
Yeah, she wasn't like
toasty.
I think it almost looked like you brightened the eyes a little bit, which I
did. I think I did.
She did not like that. Yeah. Like it looked kind of unnatural, and I kind of agree with her, dude. I think it was a little bit too much.
Yeah, like I tried to doctor that one up a little bit too much, I think, but I was trying to get like a more even exposure.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that just kind of happens. I'm not going to show the podcast, but like I think this one was it. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm just saying.
I know which one you're talking about, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it just seemed like I see that a lot. You know, I collect these anime figures because I'm a weeb.
This one was just hard to do.
Yeah.
So
You
also I've noticed. So a couple things I've noticed, and like I could mention this without having to share the image. The Sigma 85 is a great lens for value.
Yeah.
But it's nowhere the image quality of the 12 to 24 GM.
Yeah.
Or like so like I forget what your settings were on this, but just for example, I think I showed you the additional color noise in the Sigma versus the GM.
Right.
Remember that? But also her eyes in question, they were naturally almost more skin tone, like it. I kind of felt like I had to boost the whites a little bit, and I may have went a little too far on this.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and show it off because why not? I just figured like let's give some context to it. So here's the image. So he did a great job. I love that. I don't have the original, so you can't really see it unedited, but this was his edit, and I think like on the whole, it just looks very good. It's where like I think what really kind of grabs you though when you look at her face is like the eyes kind of like you just see those white dots. You know what I mean? And I think that's where it kind of looks a little bit like the contrast between her pupil and then that white of her eye is just like a little too poppy, and I feel like it was just too much. Looking at my edit versus your edit, I was like, yeah, okay, I can kind of see like why he did it, but also I feel like it was a little. But I feel like this is kind of a learning experience, right? I think
everything is a learning experience with photography. I think that if you deal with a photographer who claims to,
just be a master,
he's probably full of poop.
Yeah,
so
it's true. It's kind of funny because like you can do you could spend forever editing if you like. I think the best photographers know when to quit. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you're really picky, like I can be sometimes, like I kind of learned over the years, like I got to cut myself off after a certain point.
I mean, the best advice that I've ever received online was actually from my boy, Peter McKinnon.
Your boy.
I'm like, I don't actually know him. I just like him a lot. Is that he said that when he edits photos, and he suggests everyone do this, is you edit a photo, then you walk away for 4 hours, and then come back and see if you still feel the same way about it.
That's so true.
You know what I mean?
You need to reset.
Yeah, like you just need fresh eyes.
You really do. Like I've noticed that too, where I go back to photos that I took and I thought were pretty good, and then like after the edit, and then I come back like I don't know later, and I look through all the photos that I've done, and I'm like, I kind of wish I would have done something different. And that's the learning experience too, because like I'm a better photographer now than I was a year ago even, or 6 months ago even. And looking back now at that stuff the work that I produced before, I'm like, I could do way better today, in my opinion, than I did back then. I think most people can say that, but it's kind of fun to see that progression. I'm like, dang, dude, I want to go back and look at that raw and re-edit my old photos and make them like crispy.
It's funny how, to your point, it's funny how like little things drastically change your ability as a photographer. Like for the longest time, and I'm talking like years, right? Like years.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with like following the rule of thirds, both horizontally and vertically.
Yeah.
And then I stopped. I stopped doing that, and I started to fill the frame to make things look interesting. Like I still follow the golden rule on some photos. I still do, you know, rule of thirds in some photos, but for some, just breaking the rules and filling the frame looks a lot better. Like
It's true.
I think a good example of that is, do you remember when I shot those zombie run photos and I showed you the picture of the dog?
Yes.
And like I kind of cut off the guy's top head.
Yes.
But it looked so good, right? Like it like the composition was so interesting in my opinion, compared to like if I tried to you know, like put him in like the upper thirds and the dog in the lower thirds. Like I think that sort of composition added a lot of interest to the photo. So
no, you're 100% right. Like a lot of times, and I think that's kind of interesting. I bet you a lot of photographers go through this as you know, during their evolution, is like they learn about these rules, and then they kind of overcommit to them, and then they realize later, like, they're not like rules you have to follow. And then like suddenly they ascend to this like next level. You know what I mean? It's like they leveled up. And I've kind of gotten to that point too, where I've seen a lot of my favorite photos from some of my the most inspiring photographers that I've seen have not even committed to those rules at all. And that's when I was like, wait a minute, you know what I mean? Like, especially in video, I've seen that a lot in video. Like, you know, that rule of thirds is not something that really matters, you know?
Yeah.
Especially in video. I notice like people do whatever the hell they think looks good. There's other things that matter in video. Like, you know how like scene to scene composition matters in video, where like if you're panning to the left in one scene, you might not want to break that flow in the next scene following
scene, yeah.
And like you might want to, you know, if you have things moving right, then in the following scene you might want to keep moving things right, or maybe like don't do a jarring like right to left. Like there's a lot of things like that I'm learning about that I'm like, dang, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, it does. No, it does. It's a constant learning process.
Yeah.
You know, and like I can't even wait till I get a flash for Christmas that I'm going to buy, and then I can start exploring with that. Because like if you start to like, if you're bored one night, man, like just watch how and like that's not to say like I don't know how to use Flash now. I do, but like again, my knowledge of Flash is probably chapter 2 out of like a 40 chapter book, you know? So like there's
that much, huh?
Yeah.
Like I'm going to get into Flash. I know that it looks good. Like I've seen what's his name, dude? He's like
Manny Ortiz.
Manny Ortiz, dude, the Flash King. Cuz he's always, you know, doing great Flash photography with portraits, crispy footage, beautiful models, and I'm just like, dang, dude, I wish I was this guy right now. You know, like
it's funny. It's funny because like it does, dude. Like his job is like the dream job, right?
Yeah.
Like it really is.
He works with like great models. He takes amazing shots.
And like his job, he's kind of one of the, I don't want to call them pioneers, but like he's one of the people who like for a while, like it was basically off-camera Flash, primarily. And with modern advancements in Flash technology, for them to shrink the size of the Flash down that they could be on camera, they can, you know, through the lens focusing, like ETTL, on-camera Flash has kind of made it come back in a big way. Right. And I'm not talking like that little pop-up Flash that's on like your Canon 60D. I'm talking like, you know, like the Canon EL1 or the Sony HSL 60M. I'm talking like big boy flashes. So.
Right. No, I mean, I've seen a lot of like remote Flash stuff, like, and I was looking at a bunch of it because there's some good value Flashes out there that are pretty good. And I was like, maybe I don't need like the on-camera Flash that's like nutty. I mean, I do, but like maybe I need some auxiliary Flashes that, you know, I put in a softbox and like, you know, I could use it for that.
So, you know, and this is for the listeners out there too, but like if anyone's looking for like a Flash suggestion, I would recommend getting one of, if not the best Flash your native camera manufacturer offers. either that Sony or Canon or whatnot or whatever. And if you can't afford that, look into some of the circular Godox on camera flashes. Those are really good.
Yeah.
But ideally, I would recommend either something from Sony or Canon or Godox that also has an IR transmitter.
Right.
And then pick up a bunch of like Flashpoint AD200s and buy a bunch of, I mean, like maybe one or two, as you can afford them, because then you can trigger those with your on-camera flash. And they're brilliant off-camera flashes, absolutely brilliant. Like they're like $200, and I would say that they kind of make like the $4,000 Broncolor ones kind of a non-starter, at least for me. Like I'm sure they have a place, but in my opinion, the difference between like a decent, like 8200 and like a Broncolor. And photos you'll be taking at home or at the studio or like at your own personal studio is not worth the investment. I would put that elsewhere.
Yeah.
So
here's what I think, dude. Yeah. If I'm going to give somebody a recommendation, like even if you have to get the cheap solution, it's better than no solution.
It's better than no solution. Right.
Way better.
100%.
Way better, dude. If you buy a newer or Godox or whatever, like it's better to have the cheap light, the cheap flash, than no flash, dude. Yeah. Like, I still to this day use a bunch of cheap lights. Like for this setup here, I have a couple of these, what is this? The hell are you, dude?
Amarants? Those?
What is this, dude? The hell is this?
Oh, the GVM. Is that a GVM, dude?
Yeah, you like my Aperture sticker I got on there?
Dude, this faux Aperture sticker, dude. There you go.
But yeah. So that's my fill light, dude. That's my yellow fill in the back. But yeah, those things are so good, and they're actually kind of affordable. And the Aperture lights, like they're not affordable, but they're like really clutch. And then like I was using a key light that was like a cheap.
I love that thing,
one.
dude. I use this thing all the time.
Yeah, dude. For those like that want like the kind of like in your pocket like light, this Aperture light is.
I use this thing all the time.
Freaking sick. I love this thing, and it does full RGB, and it has wireless charging, USB-C. It's got different like effects and stuff. Like I love this thing. It's so cool. One of my favorite little. I'm glad that you convinced me to buy it. Let's just say that. Yeah, even though, it's like solid. The thing is, you don't need this though. Like if this is kind of this is still a luxury item. I think. Like it was like
I think so too.
$100, right?
Yeah.
You can buy like those. A lot cheaper, similar options to this. This is just like the quality one, and I'm glad to have it. But like, I still use those cheap lights too, dude. They're pretty close.
Can I tell you that one thing I use on this way more than I thought I would?
What's that?
Is the magnets.
Yeah, the magnets are so good. I definitely use the magnets whenever possible. In fact, I used them the other day. I was using this under my sink. Because I was replacing it, and I have like the drawer rails under there, and I click magnet.
Did you see the one? Probably not, but I'm going to reference him again. The Peter McKinnon video, where he has like 4 of these in like his Go kit.
Yeah.
And he was working on his truck, and he used one for like to work under his truck, like for photography. And he accidentally like left it there for 6 months, and it was still there.
Oh my god,
like
that's
he's
hilarious.
Like he drove around with it for like half a year, and then he's
kidding?
Like, and like he was taking inventory one day, and he noticed that like that little Aperture bag was empty. He's like, where the hell is that light at? And then he looked, and it was still stuck under his truck.
Dude, that's hilarious, dude. You just. I wonder if it still worked.
It half worked. It half worked.
Okay, damn.
So like it turned on and stuff, but he couldn't adjust like the color temperature anymore or something. Okay. But still pretty impressive. For something that
6 months, dude, under a truck with the weather and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, just say like something that totes no weather ceiling. Yeah. That's kind of built like a brick shit house for me.
I freaking love this light so much, though. It's such a like little clutch light.
Look at that, dude. Look at that, dude.
Yeah.
Looks like a stripper boy.
Yeah, dude. I love the purple light, dude. And then there's like spooky little effects and shit, like the broken bulb shit, party RGB rainbow. What do they call this? Unicorn puke when it's just like RGB.
Yeah. I hate that. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone hates that, dude. Cop car, dude. Gotta have that.
Look at that, dude. Put that in your window at night.
Drive
around.
What the fuck, dude?
Just like reach out like Starsky and Hutch and like magnetize it to your roof, dude, and drive down the street.
These other GVM lights have those effects too. like lightning and shit like that. You can see.
Yeah.
I was gonna put them out for Halloween. Like if we had trick or treaters, like I was gonna be like, I'm gonna put my freaking lights on like lightning mode and shit. Like put them outside. You know, I thought that'd be fun. But like I wasn't here for Halloween because I was on travel, sadly, and we didn't have trick or treaters anyway, so I couldn't do it. But I was like, yeah, I want to set up my lights and put the effects modes. It's like, how often do you use those effect modes? Not very often, but
right.
It's cool that they're there. Anyway, dude, what other camera stuff you got to talk about? Because we can wrap it up.
Yeah.
We wrapping it up, dude?
I think we can wrap it up for now. I may have more camera stuff next weekend though.
There's always next week, dude. There's always next week. Dude. Anyway, thanks for checking out the Technosthetic podcast. Sorry if we talked a little too much camera, but like, you know, we enjoy it. We enjoy it. So go ahead and leave comments down below. If you like the episode, go ahead and follow us and subscribe. You know, we definitely appreciate it. Everybody, we appreciate every subscriber, especially because we have so few.
Yeah. Actually, if you subscribe, we may call out by name.
Exactly, dude. We'll appreciate you by name. Anyway, thanks for watching the podcast. See you next week.